There is a story out today that proves beyond the shadow of a doubt it does not matter who you are or what level of training you have. You are always susceptible to psychological operations if you're not careful. What if I told you a major in the United States Army has fallen prey to this and has published an article talking about a solution to a problem the military's had for quite some time now that shows he's not paying attention to the real story and what's going on behind the scenes. Why? Because he has fallen victim to a certain level of psyops. Now, we talk about this over at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel. Unless you know what to look for, you will fall victim to it every time. No exceptions. It doesn't matter whether you're a major in the United States Army or whether you're a civilian or even if you've been trained in the alphabet agencies. If you're not paying attention, you will fall victim to it every single time. Now, once again, Patreon, $1 per month. Why do we do that? Well, it's a speed bump. It keeps away the trolls. It keeps away the fake accounts. It keeps you from getting inundated with spam. It's even less if you sign up for, it's even less if you sign up for an entire year. At one time, it comes out to like 90 cents a month, 3 pennies a day, and fully refundable first 90 days. Today, the first of the month, is the perfect time to sign up. Why? Because when you sign up for the $1, you get your entire month for that dollar. If you sign up the second week or the third week, you pay $1 for the rest of that month, and then for the following month, you get charged again. So it's still only a matter of pocket change, but this information is so critical. It truly is. Once I show you what's happened today, your jaw is going to hit the floor. You won't believe what you're reading. Now, I'm going to start off with a quick quote from the series Colony. Now, I know I've referenced this before, but it's a passing conversation that happens between two of the characters. On the left, you have Alan Snyder. He is the leader of the Los Angeles block. He's one of the collaborators, one of the bad guys working with the aliens. On the right, you have Katie Bowman. She's a member of the Resistance. And they're kind of caught in a bit of a quiet moment in a very strange situation where they're having a conversation. And she mentions that she grew up a military brat. And he makes the offhand comment that it must have pleased her parents, or her father specifically, that she ended up with a military man. Her husband, down here lower center, played by the actor Josh Holloway. The character, of course, is Will Bowman, her husband. And she says, maybe one day you'll have the chance to ask my Navy captain father what he thought about me marrying an enlisted Army grunt. Now, what's happened here? In the show, this particular character, having been a civilian his whole life, makes an assumption about the military just being the military across all branches and there being no difference in culture. Those of you who are out there in the military would know that Navy captain father, his one precious daughter marrying an Army grunt might not go over so well. Now, what does this have to do with reality, Florida Maquis? What's happened in reality? Well, this is an article that's come out by a Major Nolan Johnson, U.S. Army. The title, Dip, Doritos, and Drinking. Why the Army Can't Get in Shape. As if dip, Doritos, and drinking haven't been around forever in the military. And that's kind of a hint here as to what this is really all about. Now, this particular major makes the allegation that because they sell junk food at what they call AAFES, Army Air Force Exchange System, it's basically like a Quickie Mart just for the military that's a little bit cheaper. Because they sell junk food there, that's what's contributing to the U.S. military being out of shape. He starts, in 1906, Teddy Roosevelt mandated the Army's first physical fitness test. Since then, the Army has revisited its physical readiness programs repeatedly, seeking to find a cure for poor fitness and obesity. Today's health and holistic fitness program is the latest incarnation in this long line of efforts, and unfortunately it will fail like each effort before it. But you see, that's not true. This issue with the military having a pudginess problem is very recent. It's happened in the last 20 to 25 years. See, I was in the 80s and 90s, and we didn't have this issue. Nobody was talking about this issue back then. He says it will not fail because the science is wrong, or because the equipment and training are lacking, or because the leaders are not earnestly committed to it. It will fail because it applies a downstream solution to an upstream problem. Just as we can't expect to clean up a river by collecting trash at its mouth while a factory continues to dump sludge into it, we can't expect to create a fit force while the Army and Air Force exchange system continues to pollute our soldiers' bodies. So what he's talking about here is getting rid of all of the hot dogs and pizza and soda and candy bars that are available at low discounted prices at AAFES, thinking that if soldiers have to go off base to a 7-Eleven or someplace like that, they won't. They'll choose the healthy, cheaper options at AAFES, which is a bunch of malarkey. What's the problem? What has this Army major suffered from here? It's called confirmation bias. What is confirmation bias? It's one of the 24 logical fallacies, 24 cognitive biases we talk about at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel. It takes an existing belief, and then you go find evidence to support it, and then you feel good saying, I did research, and what I thought was true actually came true. Meaning he more than likely went down to an AAFES, and he saw some overweight soldiers there. You see, this is what I thought the problem was. This is what, and here it is. Here's overweight soldiers, out of shape soldiers, and they're buying candy bars. Instead of doing the hard work of asking the question, gathering and analyzing all the evidence and testing his hypothesis, which is the scientific method, he fell for this. Only remembering details that uphold your belief. This is why we talk about this and why I do this over at Patreon, because sometimes to talk about this, you've got to take the gloves off. You see, even back, and guys out there who've been in the military, guys out there, back me up. We had junk food back then, didn't we? Of course we did. It didn't matter whether we had to go off base to get it or not. It didn't matter whether it was cheaper or not. Did it? We drank our beer, we ate our chips and chicken wings and hot dogs and pizza and all this kind of stuff. Now, but you're about to ask, Florida Maquis, why is the modern force so much more out of shape than your force was way back in the 80s and 90s? Well, it's an unpopular truth. And this goes along with confirmation bias. You see, it's about culture. The military culture, in general, has been feminized because of this effort for inclusion and this effort to make this available to everybody. We have softened up the force. Now, here's the reality nobody wants to hear. If you were one of this group of guys going out on weekends, what motivates young soldiers? What motivates young soldiers? Well, yeah, it's this. This is what motivates young soldiers. Now, you don't want to be the fat, round-faced, pudgy guy who goes out with this group of guys. Now, you're going to meet a lot of girls that want to be your friend, but that isn't what young men in the military are looking for. And that's what motivates you. And this is the key. This is the mental leap the major who wrote the article won't make. It doesn't matter what you think should motivate young soldiers. You have to focus on what actually motivates young soldiers. Being in shape had one purpose back then. Yes, to do your job. Yeah, you wanted to look good in your uniform, sure. Felt good to be young and strong, but you always had that competition factor. You see, no matter how good looking you were, you didn't want to be the least good looking guy in your group. Did you? Did you? Because guess what? The ladies were going to gravitate to. There was competition. And competition is antithetical to feminine culture. Feminine culture emphasizes the quality of life, not success. Close interpersonal relationships. You see, here in the modern military, it's about developing the relationships with your buddies and not competing with them. Emphasize compromise and negotiation in resolving conflicts, where everybody wins. See, in a masculine culture, there's a win-lose conflict strategy. Fighting out the differences. And people know this. That there's a feminine way of going about things, and for women, I guess it applies. Generally speaking, it's what they, are best at, but there's also a masculine way of going about things. And that's what's been gotten rid of in the military, because a lot of the highest ranks now in the military across all branches are held by women. And they're trying to install a feminine culture in the military, and they wonder why they're getting rounder faced and pudgier and more overweight, because they're trying to get rid of a culture. A culture that valued this, that they think is, it's unattainable and you can't this, that, and the other, and all this, not accepting of reality. The reason young men work out and compete and get in shape is for the same reason they have done it for time immemorial. And why can't a U.S. Army major see this? Well, probably if he's a U.S. Army major, his entire career from the time he joined to now has been controlled primarily by women at the highest ranks. At 53 years old, having my time in the military been in the 80s and 90s, it wasn't so much that way back then. Confirmation bias. And if you don't believe me, how many of you out there know the channel Jennifer Veterans for Truth, Jennifer LaFontaine, Jennifer Fontenot? She has a teenage girl and 2 young boys. She's married to a guy that she met on a ship in the Navy. They were both in the Navy at the time. Now, if you want to talk to a woman who was in the military, talking about, how decisions were made, about who you decided to get in a relationship with and didn't get in a relationship with when you're in your 20s, well, that's, something you can bring up with her, but I guarantee she'll confirm everything that I've said. And even the Patriot Nurse has talked about this in many different videos about the feminization of men and the loss of male culture. Now, these are 2 different female voices that would kind of confirm everything I'm telling you about this. And isn't it funny, and this is from yesterday's video, that the farther back in time you go in cultures, the more striking the difference between men and women. So you look at this picture from Rapa Nui from Easter Island, the descendants of Antarctica, and there's absolutely no human being on the planet that couldn't look at this picture and decide who the man is and who the woman is. It's literally in science. It's in biology. It's not even about culture at this point. It's literally about the truth right before your eyes. So when I put up a funny picture like this, ladies, if your man doesn't know how to fire a weapon, you have a girlfriend. This is the solution. A return to rationality. A return to normality. Florida Maquis, are you saying that it's a moral thing for young men to go chase women? Well, I'm not saying it's moral or immoral or one way or the other. I'm saying it just is what it is. And this is what motivates young men to stay in shape. Yes, we ate hot dogs, and yes, we drank beer, and we ate stuff that was horrible for us back in the 80s and 90s. We just worked that much harder out on the PT field. You see, that's the real key here. It's not the diet. You see, when you get into your 30s and 40s and 50s, as a man or a woman, diet becomes a much bigger part of your choice about, whether you are overweight or not. But when you're young, when young force, which is what this guy was talking about back in this article, he's talking about the young force. Today's active duty force abuses alcohol 20% more than the general population, as if military guys haven't been heavy drinkers since, before World War I. Smokes 50% more. Once again, that's a military culture thing. And has a 17% obesity rate. You see, that's not a normal thing, despite access to nutritionists, gyms, and wellness centers. What about the Army lifestyle? Explains how America's healthiest 1% can join the Army only to become so unhealthy. What explains the 0 to 17% transformation in obesity from recruit to soldier? I can tell you exactly what it is. I can tell you literally exactly what it is. It's because the U.S. military, especially the U.S. Army, has become feminized. They have de-emphasized what comes naturally to the masculine gender, to men. They have taken masculinity and made it a dirty word, basically. And the things that men naturally value, they've tried to teach that, they've tried to educate, you shouldn't feel that way. The way that you normally feel, the way that you would know, that's wrong. They're trying to make the argument that it's been a taught thing or a learned thing that young men chase women. That somehow that is a learned behavior that can be, educated out of a force. It's silliness. You need to give these guys a reason to be in shape. You need to give these guys a reason to want to have rock hard washboard abs and big, strong shoulders and cut jaw lines. You need to give these guys a reason to do that. And I can think of a real good reason. And it isn't diversity and inclusion. It's this. And boy, I tell you what, the channel catches all sorts of crap for showing pictures like this. You mark my words, the day is going to come, ladies, especially those of you that love to go down in the comments and complain about this. There's a day going to come when you're going to miss men that value this. See, when you look all along that sea of men in your life and they're all just want to be your friend, and they're all look like, the number 8, basically. And I'll let you figure that out. The number 8 coming walking at you. Every single one of them. And not a single one of them has a cut that you can tell where their neck stops and their jaw begins. You're going to wish for this day. You're going to wish for this day. You're going to wonder what happened. Where did they all go? Where did all the men go? See, this whole diversity and inclusion thing where everybody gets, degenderized, and it's just a matter of, well, everybody looks exactly the same and you just get to choose what you are. See, sorry. That's just not reality. It's not reality. And all we need to do is look at the past. This is what we can learn from history. Those who don't learn from it will be forced to repeat it, or something even worse. Isn't it ironic that when we talk about third world countries, or we talk about countries that aren't as good as America, or don't have American freedom, American value, all this kind of stuff, they don't have this problem with being confused, do they? See, I'll guarantee you this, those of you who are big border nuts, we need to close the border, we need to build a wall. I guarantee those people coming across that southern border ain't confused about who's who in this picture. Not in the least. And once again, PSYOPs. PSYOPs 101. If you want to get read in, if you want to learn about the 24 cognitive biases, the 24 logical fallacies, and how easy it is to fall prey to them and fall victim to them so that you just fall into lockstep with this nonsense, If you want to defend against that and still be able to see reality, join us. Join us over at Patreon. Like I said, it's $1 US. It's the lowest allowable level. If it could be a quarter, I would charge a quarter. All I'm trying to do is to get rid of the trolls and get rid of the fake multiple accounts. $1 US per month, even less if you sign up for an entire year, and fully refundable first 90 days. Videos go on Vimeo, their servers, not on Google servers, so we can take the gloves off. And ironically so, even for this video, many have gone over there, signed up and said, oh my gosh, I can't believe there's nudity. I can't believe you've shown this and you've shown, you can't possibly be a Christian. All this kind of stuff, and people then cancel their subscriptions, which is fine. Which is fine. If the human body in and of itself offends you, perhaps you're not ready. Perhaps you're not ready to accept PSYOPs and the training and be able to see reality. It's not for everyone. So once again, would love to have you over there. God bless. Have a great week. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.